Hello and welcome to the Down Under Visa Philippines to Australia podcast series. I'm your host, Jeff Harvey, registered migration agent with Down Under Visa, the premier Australian migration agent in Manila, Philippines, specialising in visas for Australian Filipino couples. We hope you enjoy this podcast and hope it proves useful to you. Please feel free to share this with your partner and with any of your interested friends. Let's get started. Tourist visa from Philippines to Australia, but you haven't met yet. You met a lovely lady in the Philippines via the internet and you consider yourselves to be in an Australian-Filipino relationship. Now you've hit it off and you're crazy about her. You video chat every night or on every spare opportunity. Maybe you know already inside yourself that she is the one, and maybe you want her to come and visit on a tourist visa to Australia to see if you and her feel the same in real life and to see if she likes Australia. Perfectly reasonable, and it's a perfectly sensible plan. It makes a little bit more sense than somebody declaring that they found the one after chatting for 3 days and then making wedding plans. We get that. But you haven't met in person yet. That's the issue. Now, you could meet your Filipino sweetheart in Philippines, but why? It would be easier if she came to you on a tourist visa, right? And that way, she can meet your family, meet your friends, see the great country of Australia, where she may well end up living anyway. Makes sense, doesn't it? In your head, it probably makes fantastic sense, but is it going to work, and will you be able to get an Australian tourist visa for her? The short answer is no. Tourist visas, why do you need to meet first? Look, it's hard for the average Australian to understand that a tourist visa would actually be refused. And look, understand this is why I'm saying no. It's not that Jeff's in a bad mood and says, no, you can't have a visa. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. No, I'm just telling you the way that it works is that applications where you have not met, they get refused. That's been our very long and detailed experience over the years. Now, I guess as Australians, we're used to applications for most things not being rejected. We're not used to getting knockbacks. Most think it's just a formality and wonder why on earth a registered migration agent would be of any value at all when it's just a simple tourist visa application. Fill out some online forms and wait for the inevitable visa grant. So they think, So why do tourist visas get refused? Well, it's because they have to deal with dodgy visa applicants from poorer countries all the time who will come to Australia on tourist visas so they can overstay and earn the big dollars. And what could be easier than to flirt with a lonely Australian man and get a free trip to Australia to get started? It does happen. It is a fact, it happens. There are girls out there who could be having half a dozen fiancés on the go at any particular time, and they like getting money sent to them, and if they get a free trip to Australia tossed in as well, visa, ticket and some spending money, they can disappear. Australian tourist visas are seen by many as being the base visa, therefore, cheaper and quicker to process. And yes, they compared to a partner visa, they are considerably cheaper and easier. But because of this, these are the target visas for those who are hell-bent on breaking the rules. Yes, I know you will say that Gina Lynn or Marie Bell or Sheila or whatever her name is, she isn't like that. Or I'll make sure she doesn't overstay. But they don't know her, and they know there's a chance you don't know her as well as you think you do either. Maybe she's pushing your buttons and you don't know it. It wouldn't be the first time that a charming young lady has got the better of you. I don't know, fellas listening. Have you ever had a girl get the better of you? I have my hand up right now because, been there, done that. It happens. The fact is, there were 60,000 plus visa overstayers in Australia every year, even with the system being difficult. Yes, the system is difficult. It's not. It is not a mere formality to tick the boxes and whack the application in and the visa comes back. It is not. It is difficult, but even despite that, there are still 60,000 plus visa overstays in Australia every year. Now, some manage to stay under the radar for years. Some become thieves, some sell drugs, some get into prostitution, and some can get quite seriously exploited just because of the position they're in, by that I mean being unlawfully in Australia, having overstayed a visa. And none of this is particularly good for them or for the country either. Fact is, even someone on low pay could earn in a day working in Australia what they earn in half a month in the Philippines. Now, a few years of getting away with this, they could earn quite a lot of money. The other reason, there are men who, if they could, would bring a girl to Australia, and look, sorry to be blunt about this, there's no polite way of wording this, have 3 months of free sex and then send her back again. Maybe another Filipino girl and another tourist visa after that. Now, people like this most definitely do exist, and they would rather this sort of thing didn't happen, and, any decent person would rather that sort of thing didn't happen. That's the point. So why do you need to meet in person? Think about this, because if you take the time to get on a plane and fly to another country, to devote a few weeks of your time to somebody and they to you, then there's a good chance that there is some substance to what is probably a genuine relationship. No guarantees, obviously, but it's most likely you both invested sufficient time and effort, and it's unlikely you would go all that way to spend time with someone you were a bit uncertain about, nor would they introduce you to their Filipino family, and take care of you if they only saw you as a ticket to Australia. Yes, of course, there are clever and sneaky people, but there's less likelihood if you can show that commitment. It shows that it's not just some internet fling that you have a chat to when you're a little bit bored and you think, what the heck, let's get her to come to Australia. If you've actually made that supreme effort to stepped out of your comfort zone, as it were, and you've gone heading off to the Philippines to meet somebody, that's the point. It shows that there is some commitment there, and they want to see that before they allow that person to go into Australia. So why can't you just invite who you want to Australia? Because, look, there's many a man who gets very, very offended at this. I think, how dare they? I should be able to invite whoever I want. They get very stroppy about that. They want to complain to local members, complain to whoever. Those who, when they get a visa refused, they go right off. And I've seen some horribly abusive emails sent to the embassy. I had somebody who was, my goodness, he was borderline threatening them. My goodness. I left him to it. I wasn't going to deal with somebody like that. Forget it. But no, you can't just invite anybody you want to Australia. The reason is it's not your inherent right to do so. Now, if they live in Australia, you want to invite them to your place, your house, your flat, sure, do whatever you want. You meet a girl, you want her to come and stay with you. If you both agree, obviously, then there's no problem. But you don't have the right to invite someone from overseas into Australia. The immigration people have the task of doing this, and it's written in the Australian Constitution. The task rests with the Minister for Immigration, and he or she that doles out that task to delegates then the department employ. So in other words, we're talking about the case officers who sit in offices of the department in Australia, or the delegates who sit in the Australian Embassy in Manila. They are representing the minister, and a lot of the boring legal documentation refers to the minister this, the minister that. It's the minister who makes decisions. That's just how the law works. They consider each application in line with the criteria set out in the migration regulations, which is an act of federal parliament for that visa type, and they do that in order to protect Australia's borders, to make sure only the people that Australia wants get into Australia. And for tourist visas, they're talking about somebody who's what they call a genuine applicant, a genuine temporary entrant who has a genuine reason for visiting Australia, and they have no concerns about them playing silly buggers with the system in order to sneak in, basically. So while you can invite someone in and offer to sponsor them, you know you can't make the yes or no decision. And yes, they may say no, but that doesn't mean they're picking on you. Doesn't mean they have it in for you. More often than not, it just simply means you simply haven't convinced them. And if you haven't met in person, it's very, very unlikely you will convince them if you haven't met in person physically. So much so that our practice at Down Under Visa is to tell people who haven't met in person that we simply can't help them. We do that, we send something out and say, look, I'm sorry, we can't help you. Please go and meet and build up some substance, and if you come back to me in 3-4 months or whatever with your established relationship that's nicely documented, and we'll have another look at it. So that's what we do. We say no. And sometimes they get annoyed, and I'm sure some go elsewhere, or they find somebody more willing to take their money. But and we're okay. Well, we're as okay with that as we possibly can be. But the fact is, we get enough legitimate applications to keep us busy. I absolutely hate visa refusals with a passion, and I hate that feeling of letting someone down. I mean, we get paid anyway, even if you get a refusal. But I do value having a clear conscience. So you haven't met. How can she get an Australian tourist visa? More simple than you could imagine. Get on a plane and go and meet her. Then we can apply for you after that. Now, if she isn't worth that effort, then maybe she's the wrong girl and you would be wasting your time anyway. If she's the right one, then why would this be a difficult choice? If you really think she's the right one. Look, I know with my lovely wife Mila, who we were married for many years, but I knew before I met her that she was the one. I was utterly convinced. I'm a very, very practical person, but I knew within a matter of weeks that she was the right one. And I knew absolutely we had to meet in person. And I would have walked over hot coals to be with her. There's no way you would have had me sitting there going, it seems like a bit of effort. Couldn't I just have her delivered here? It just wouldn't have seemed right. The fact is, I've known people who married a Filipina. Where the Filipina sister came out to be with her sister many, many, many years ago when things were a little bit easier to get visas, and met somebody and married in Australia. And chaps who've never been to the Philippines at all. You can see, I don't know, there are just certain things they don't understand or will never understand if they haven't been there. Fact is, you will learn a lot about her if you come to the Philippines and see where she grew up. You meet her family and her friends, see where and how she grew up, just immerse yourself in the culture for a bit. Now after this, you will have a much clearer idea if she is, in fact, the one. And you can contact us to help you to get a visa for her at that point. Do that, then spend some time together in Australia, meet your friends and family. You'll have a much clearer idea if you want to take it to the next step and say, hey Jeff, we're ready for a partner visa. So good luck, and I hope that's been helpful to you. Thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the Down Under Visa Philippines to Australia podcast series. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you found this useful. Australian visas from the Philippines are not easy and the outcome matters, as you well know. Please feel free to contact us anytime if you need some further help. And we look forward to talking to you again next time. Bye bye.